Don't do religion, don't do this, I'm not interested. And I just look to the left or right and I say, oh, I see you've got a camellia over there, that's donation, isn't it? Oh, I see the leaves are very yellow, it's very chlorosed. What it needs is some tomato feed. And they go, do you know about these things? And within minutes,
you're talking.
I'm in the house,
yes.
I've got homemade cakes, I'm being shown around the garden, I don't need to pay an admission, and these people are interested.
Yeah.
And so it's not rejection of me, John Goodway, it's rejection of what the gospel stands for, you know? And as soon as you recognise that, it's a huge, it's like taking a weight off your shoulders. And horticulture, having a background in horticulture has been an incredible release for me to get into homes and talk to people, you know, about everyday subjects, because God is an everyday God. Jesus met the people where they were. You know, not once did I see him go round the village and say service times are 10:30 till 11 and if you're not there we're going to be really sorry. You know, he didn't do that. He said come to me, but he was there where they could come to. They didn't have to cross the threshold to talk to him. He met them where they were.
Some people today get all tied up because people are taught this is the way you've got to preach the gospel. Okay, and you can only preach it this way, and others come along and say no, you can preach it this way, and I think people sometimes get confused. I mean, from what you're saying is you are relating to the person. It's not a system of presentation. You know the God you believe in. You know the gospel as to forgiveness and repentance and all of those things. And you are then going to relate to the person that opens that door where they are. Is that the way? I'm not putting words into your mouth, because that's what it comes across as.
No, some of the work that I did with Outreach UK before I left and became a pastor was very often I'd hold workshops, and I remember one in particular in Haywards Heath where we had a workshop on the Saturday before we went out and had a week of mission, and several of the people said, well, if we come out with you and we knock a door, what do we say? Well, quite frankly, there is not a prescription. There's not a set thing that you could write down and say this is what to say. Because every person you meet, everywhere you go, people are different. And it's accepting that they're different. To say all Muslims are the same would be wrong. To say all Jehovah's Witnesses are the same is wrong. To say all Christians are the same is wrong. Everyone is different. And so we must be switched on. One of the prayers that I prayed when I first came into evangelism was for the prayer for the gift of discernment. Discerning when that person's angry with me, why are they angry? What's going on behind there? And to bring some sort of mileage to that, a story I love to tell of a house in Heathfield, and I knocked this door, and 2 days before I'd put a little spoof questionnaire about is there a God and all that kind of stuff, and a little potted testimony, and this lady came to the door, youngish lady, and she came to the door and she said, oh, you're that John Goodway. I'm not interested in religion. And she banged the door, and the knocker was going like this. And I kind of looked and went, that's a no then. Like you would, you know. And I wandered round and carried on round the close. And just across the way, I met someone I knew and was chatting to them. And it was shortly after that the Indian people that I've been working with paid for me to go out to India for a couple of weeks or so for ministry. And when I came back, I happened to be in a church in Welcome Baptist in Heathfield, and we all went to our seats as you do. And Andy Caldwell, who was the pastor there at the time, he used to, before he preached, he'd always say, turn around and shake hands with somebody you've not spoken to before. And this woman, when I went to my seat, was vaguely familiar. But, you know, bearing in mind, you knock doors all the time, you know, you see so many. Anyway, this tap on my shoulder, and I look round, and this lady says, do you remember me? And I go, well, vaguely. She said, I'm the one that slammed the door in your face. And I still smile today, thinking she thinks she's the only one that's done that. Should that ever be true? And so I said, well, what are you doing here then? Why are you here? And she said, I watched you. As you went round the close, I was watching out the window. And she said, I was so impressed that it had no effect on you. You were smiling, laughing, sharing with people. She said, so I went back and I read the literature you left. And suddenly I was consumed with guilt. Wow. That I'd been so rude to you. Yeah. She said, so when I saw your car go, she said, I went to that person that you talked to in the corner and I just said, you know, do you know this man? And she said, yeah, he comes to worship. So she said, each Sunday, she said, I've been here waiting to apologise. I said, well, the great thing is, you've met me now. You can now go home. You can stop coming to church and get on with your life. And she said, actually, this man with me is my husband, and we love it here, and we wouldn't think of it. But I want to apologise. And as far as I know, they're still part
Praise
of that
God.
Fellowship now.
It's terrific.
So yeah,
it's appointments, isn't it? And it's being. I had I was flying back from Prague on Monday. And gone on to the flight and sat, and there was a spare seat in the middle, and this guy sat, and I was a bit suspicious of him, wasn't too sure of him, but anyway, we took off, and he leaned over and he says, you British? I said, yeah. He said, you 50s, 60s, you know, I thought he was being very kind. I said 40s actually. He said, okay. He said, tell me, he says, what do you think of the Jews? And I thought, what do I do? I've never, nobody in their life has ever, you know, what it turned out was he is a Jew, but he's had so many problems with the way Jews have acted and reacted and gone on. And I was just able to share, I said, well, actually, we love the Jews. Yeah. And he said, well, I've just been, you know, involved in the Passover, and I can't. I said, you know, I said, we as well. I said, but there's a difference between the Passover for the Jew and for, I said, yeah, the difference is we see the Messiah. So, and because of who he was, and he'd started the conversation, and he went on, and I said, you know, I said, I really think, you know, God brought this about today. I said, let's explain. I said, he flew in from Israel to Prague. I said, how many flights in? How many flights out from Prague to London today? How many seats on those planes? I said it's a 5,000 to 1 shot that you sit there and there's an empty seat in between us. And you know, I just know God, and it's great, isn't it? That and you can just be yourself. And you can communicate.
Absolutely. And again, you know, I've said this earlier in this program that, you know, it's a weight comes off your shoulders. Because the expectation of God is just to be obedient. You know, I believe, like you were saying there, I believe totally in divine appointments.
Yes.
And what we have to do is wait for God. You know, sometimes I think J. John says in one of his courses, you know, sometimes we meet someone and we're so racked with guilt that we've not shared the gospel or whatever for a while, and we give this person the whole kind of whole Bible, and as we walk away they spew it back because they can't take it in, where actually all we had to do was just say, hi, how you doing? And that will show something. I remember one man, I was on a day off, and this is a whole grey area for anyone in ministry. You know, when are you on a day off? How does that work?
It's like, when do you retire?
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't happen. And I was just wandering down I'd been down to the pet shop to get bird food, and as I came back up the hill, this old guy's going along with his dog, and I just stopped and said, how you doing, mate? What kind of day are you having? And he said, you must be really special. And I said, I don't think so. Why? He said, because you've stopped to talk to an old man.
Right.
And I believe that was a divine appointment, a chance. And I didn't tell him about Jesus and God, but I showed him something.